On today's show, man, we're going to recap the United States winning the gold medal, beating France, and stopping the doubters. It's kind of hilarious in terms of when the U.S. loses. There's up in arms. There's panic over Twitter. It's just like, we're dealing with the pandemic and there's other things that are really, so serious in our society. But the U.S. loses in basketball and all hell breaks loose. So I'm glad the USA beat France so we can move on to more important things. But we're going to recap the United States beating France 87-82 to win the gold medal over France. I think this was a massive accomplishment. As I said earlier, you had Drew Holiday, Devin Booker, Chris Middleton, taking a long flight after their celebration. I'm sure they were drunk. Let's just keep it real. In terms of their celebration, they're hungover. Just you're off this high, right? Of this, you just went the world championship and you have to go to Tokyo to, compete in this international tournament that is very, very competitive. Just for them to participate and be a positive factor, I think is a huge accomplishment. So go ahead, Matt. Go ahead with your recap.
Yeah, well, just real quick to kind of set the stage for this, we did have 2 losses in exhibition play.
Correct.
That was to Nigeria and France, if I'm not mistaken there. So it was good to have redemption in this gold medal game and beat France for that. A very talented, a very big French team. But heading into the preliminary round, just for those of you who didn't catch it, the United States took care of business, beating the Czech Republic 119-84. You can see it on the screen here. In the quarterfinals, we took care of business against Spain. And this is where myself, as a fan of Team USA, started feeling a bit more confident about, hey, you know what? We really do have the best player in the world right now, or at least the best player competing in these games currently. And we really should take care of business. To me, that the expectation still every Olympics is that we should be taking gold unless something goes extremely wrong, even with the roadblocks that you mentioned or the obstacles that you mentioned earlier. We hold a pretty high standard, given that we have the '92 Dream Team. We kind of pride ourselves for being the originator and the growers of the sport of basketball. Moving into the semifinals, we take care of business against Australia. No small task there, given they've got Joe Ingles, Patty Mills. They have Jock, I can't remember his last name, but we talked about him last pod, who just signed with the Spurs. So that's a legit team in Australia. And correct me if I'm wrong, Justin, but in the finals, as you'll see, you mentioned that we beat France to win the gold medal. Australia wins their bronze medal. I believe that's the first time the Australian basketball team has medaled. So congratulations to them on that. Was really cool seeing Joe Ingles and Patty Mills celebrating together on Twitter for that. So Justin, let me ask you just broadly, was there a moment for you where it felt like expectations of this team were a little bit higher now, or they'd kind of settled in, or maybe just turned a corner as a cohesive unit?
I was nervous about this entire tournament, to be honest, because I watched some of these games. The way they did the start times of the games, it was able to be viewed in prime time. I think it was like 9-10 o'clock Mountain Time. Just watching it, their 3-point shooting was terrible. We're talking like going stretches of like 0 for 9, 0 for 10. So it was like, oh man, what is happening here? And that France loss freaked me out just in terms of like game management. That was baffling to me. I'm like, I don't know. Those caliber of players and Popovich, I didn't understand what was going on in that sequence. Since they won the gold medal, it's just like a fluke. I guess, things happen. But to answer your question, I was pretty nervous the entire time. I mean, they were behind in a lot of those games. I think even Spain, they were behind in that game too.
You're
France,
right.
they're behind. It's just, they never, in my opinion, just like outright destroyed a team in this tournament. I
I
think
think
that
even
speaks
against
to,
Australia, even
yeah,
with that win, I
yeah,
think they were behind
absolutely.
before
They
halftime.
were. Yeah, absolutely. So to me, I never felt comfortable. And I think it
Mm.
speaks to the level of competition is up. I mean, I think you're right. The USA is going to be the predominant favorite. The USA has the best talent in the world. But I think this notion of the United States just destroying everybody at every game, I think that just has to go out the window. I think that's not going to happen. um, especially the way this team was constructed in terms of getting, 3 integral players off an NBA Finals, and who knows what's going to happen with like we're in a new world now where the schedule might be turned upside down. So when we were dealing with like the FIBA World Championships or just the Olympics, I mean, the Olympics are coming up pretty quickly. I mean, they're not the way the schedule works. It's still going to be Paris in 2024. So who knows what's going to happen? 3 years from now, when we might be in a similar situation with the NBA schedule. So my point is that that level of comfortability where I had with previous Olympics, where yeah, the USA is gonna wipe the floor of this team and they're just gonna automatically win the gold medal. I'm nervous every game, and I enjoy it. It's fun to watch. It's much more enjoyable product to me, not knowing the USA is gonna win the game or not. I think the level of competition, I think defensively from Spain, Australia, and France, I think was pretty good, and I think it raised the attention of the United States. I didn't feel like there was a massive talent disparity. I didn't feel like okay, US they're just like not giving a crap about this game. I feel like the other teams are they're playing well. They're competing with the United States. I feel like the gap has gone is pretty much this. And so United States, if they play poorly, they will lose. I mean, it's not going to be a thing where Durant can go 0 for 12 and the other guys, Damian Lillard, can struggle and they can win somehow. Like I think they're going to have to put on a pretty decent performance to win. I think Damian Lillard was dealing with an injury too, from what I heard after. Where on social media somebody said that. So I think overall to your question, Matt, I felt pretty nervous watching all
Hmm.
these games, but it made it fun to watch. It made it more enjoyable.
Yeah, I feel differently in some aspects. I think
Yeah,
totally with the NBA season being structured so that they could get players to the Olympics and so that they could finish the season right before the Olympics. But even then, players still missing exhibition rounds. It was cut
sure.
very close. I don't think we're going to get that in 4 years. I think that's going to be a beneficial thing for Team USA. I also, in some ways, feel positive about the outcome here because it seems to me we sent, and I don't mean this as a slight against anyone that was there, but other than KD, it felt to me like we were sending a B team to get the Olympics done here. I mean, we didn't have a Steph, we didn't have a LeBron for obvious reasons. I mean, there are injury stuff, so I'm not using this opportunity to rip on any of those guys, certainly anything like that. But basically, we got JaVale McGee as playing significant center role
Yeah,
on this Team USA. So, and in other years, I don't think that happens, and that's no disrespect to him, but just the talent that we had there was a B team, and we were still able to get gold. So, in my opinion, I think in 4 years, the world talent is going to continue to improve. I'm totally with you on that, but I do think our caliber of talent that we're sending might be better. God willing, that we don't have the year and a half or so that we've had this past year and a half, and we don't get a weird Olympic schedule or some season like that. So I think the next team will be deeper and we'll have a smoother time. I also wanted to ask you this. Do you think this is Pop's last time coaching Team USA?
seems like it to me. They feel like kind of a swan song.
I would
So
agree.
it's kind of
Yeah.
like he got his gold and he's out. So and also it just seems like a lot of work too. And I think his age and what I'm feeling of his career could be completely wrong. He could coach for another 10 years. I don't know. But it seems like his career is coming to an end. So I would say this is his last Olympics, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree, and I would think that the heir apparent there is Steve Kerr,
I agree.
who was on the bench there. It seems like just with the connections that he has and being a former player himself, that seems to make a lot of sense to me. Did you have any other thoughts on this game against France before I ask you some other broad questions I want to tackle?
No, not really. I will say one thing is after the game, I think you saw Draymond Green and Kevin Durant really take those doubters to heart. One thing I think it was cool to see them like cool, and they're clearly hanging out. Like it just seemed like any beef they had is over. Um, and anything that happens through the regular season is more competitive than like they have some kind of drama from Golden State years ago. Because they were like, you see Kevin Durant's IG live. I mean, he's not the guy to fake. One thing about Kevin Durant, he's not the guy to fake any type of like flattery. He doesn't like you. He's not
Mhm.
going to talk to you.
Mhm.
So him and Draymond were hanging out. I thought that was cool. But I guess my point is that they were pretty much shutting up the doubters there, pretty much saying like, I think they even went after Kendrick Perkins because I think he was a
Right.
heavy doubter of what Team USA was going to do. But no, I think a question I wanted to ask you. You brought up earlier is like, what's this team going to be like in Paris? And most likely, I don't see LeBron playing on his team.
Oh yeah, no.
With Steph, I think that's even a question mark. I don't know if he's going to be on his team, to be honest. I mean, with injuries and everything like that, and you have to wonder, what about Clay Thompson? I mean, we don't know what his injury status is going to be. I mean,
Oh yeah.
Zion, we don't know. I mean, he could be a massive player in this league. We don't know, but it's a situation. Will this team be that much better if they have James Harden, Kyrie Irving, Durant, um, Zion? I mean, maybe, but at the same time, I mean, would Kyrie really want to play for Team USA? I don't know. I mean, James Harden. I mean, it's just a lot of other question marks that I don't necessarily think that we're going to see like a super team out there. I think we saw this team they won the gold, and so they won with their quote unquote B team. What's the incentive of really jacking this team up? Okay, just you have your B team, and they already have when players were falling out from this Olympics. You had other players that wanted to play on this team, so I think it's abundantly clear that they don't necessarily have to put out the A+ guns a blazing. Let's make sure we have like 12 All Stars on this team. I think they're going to kind of take this approach moving on out, and I think it for me it makes it more fun to watch. But I
Mhm.
get it if people are freaking out in terms of, hey, we should beat every team by 30. Then you know I don't think the A team is going to necessarily be out there just due to different restraints. But I could be mistaken.
Well, to your point, next Olympics, Luca is going to be the best player in the world, hands down. And I don't know if that's enough to get Slovenia to the medal stage, but they're going to be in the hunt for
Got there
sure.
before, yeah.
And you got to think they're going to be working hard, knowing that they have Luca to develop other talent around him to get to the medal stage. And I hope for his sake he does get to the medal stage. But no, that's a great point. And I think it will be interesting to see. You're going to have to see the next generation, because even if you look at like a James Harden, he'll be 36 next Olympics,
It's true.
and that's pretty old. And I don't know if he will be in the mood that he wants to go get a gold medal or not. But we're going to see, will pressure be there on Anthony Davis? Will we see like the rise of Zion to come and kind of take the mantle? It's kind of this whole act of passing the baton. And it's been this way for a few generations of players that we've had the privilege to watch now. So you're absolutely right. I mean, I think if the U.S. backs off the gas pedal, we are seeing talent rise to the point that, and you and I have seen it, that they haven't always gotten the gold medal when we've watched them. So yeah, they need to keep their foot on the gas pedal if this is important to Team USA to win the gold. And you're right, it does make it more entertaining because there is a real threat now, and multiple threats from other teams. So I think it's going to be a great thing for the sport of basketball just in general, that it's going to be a very entertaining product. One of the highlights of the Olympics, I would imagine, as we see more of this talent developed.